Imagine this. You're looking at ancient rock art, thousands of years old. You see these incredibly realistic animals etched into stone. But then, as you follow the art through time, those images start to, well, they morph into something else entirely. Part bird, part wolf maybe. Almost alien. What could possibly cause such a massive shift in how people saw and drew the world around them? Today, that's exactly what we're diving into. The amazing transformation of elk rock art right there in the Mongolian Altai Mountains. Our mission really is to trace the journey of these powerful animal images, from those super realistic beginnings to becoming these stylized, almost mythical creatures. And, crucially, what do these changes tell us about the people, about their lives, their beliefs? We're leaning heavily on some fantastic research by Dr. Esther Jacobson-Tepfer, published recently in the Cambridge Archaeological Journal. It really sheds incredible light on this whole ancient puzzle. Okay, so let's get started. First off, maybe a quick word about the star here. The elk. What kind of animal are we actually talking about?
Yeah, it's definitely good to ground ourselves in the actual animal. Its biology, its habitat, that's all pretty key to the story. So the elk we're seeing here is Cervus elaphus sibiricus. Sometimes people call it wapiti or red deer. It's big. Second largest in the deer family, actually. Only the moose is bigger. And the males, well, they have those really impressive antlers, right? Which they shed every year. They're also mixed feeders. They need grass, but also woody plants. So that means they really thrive in or near forests. That becomes important later.
Okay, got it. Big antlered forest adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
So when the very first artists started depicting them, what did those images look like? What was the focus?
Right, so the earliest images we have, they go way back, late Paleolithic. We're talking around 12,000 years before present. And they're mostly pecked into the rock surface. Dr. Jacobson-Tepfer points out that, painted images just wouldn't really last out in the open in the Altai Mountains. There is one exception, a set in the Quetzalcoatl cave, but mostly it's pecked art. And these initial depictions are stunningly realistic, very naturalistic. You see males, females, sometimes even young elk. What's also fascinating is they often appear alongside other big animals from that time. Mammoths, woolly rhinos, even ostriches.
Wow, so like a snapshot of their Ice Age world, very static profile views, just showing what was there.
Exactly. Static is a good word, usually in profile. It's all about direct realism. Accurate representation seems to be the goal.
Did that perfect realism stick around for long? Or did it start to change?
No, it didn't last forever. It definitely evolved. Over time, the elk images start showing a bit more life, less static. They still look realistic, but maybe more alert, showing more movement. And what's really significant here, Jacobson-Tepfer notes, is that elk start showing up more often with people, alongside hunters, or maybe right in the middle of a hunt scene. So that suggests a deepening relationship, maybe, between humans and the elk and their environment generally, not just observing, but interacting.
That makes sense. But
yeah,
how on earth do researchers figure out the timeline for all this? Dating rock art that spans thousands of years sounds incredibly tricky.
Oh, it is. It's really complex, but absolutely crucial, to understand the sequence. Researchers look at a whole range of things. The technique, for instance, was it engraved or pecked or scraped? Even how it was pecked matters. Then there's the presentation. Is it face-on or profile? And the style itself, realistic, naturalistic, or becoming stylized, those are big clues. Patina, that's the sort of redarkening of the pecked surface over time that can give clues too, but it's not always foolproof on its own. What's actually quite helpful are the details in how humans are shown.
Ah, like their gear.
Exactly. Weapons, tools, clothing, even the hunting methods, or whether they're riding horses yet. You can often compare that stuff with things found in actual archaeological digs. But maybe the most fundamental thing is just understanding the environment itself at different times. Artists drew what they saw. If the animals weren't there because their food source vanished, well, they wouldn't be in the art. Geology, climate, vegetation, animal, it's all connected.
Okay, so connecting the art to the environment is key. When do we start to see that realism really begin to fade? When does the art start getting weird?
Well, by the later Bronze Age, you definitely see realism taking a backseat. Artists are starting to bring in more stylized shapes. Elk bodies might get longer, stretched out. Antlers become exaggerated. And this trend, this stylization, it just intensifies. Eventually, you get these highly abstract elk. Their faces get really long, almost like bird beaks. Sometimes their bodies look more like wolves. It's quite a transformation.
Right. This is where it gets wild. You mentioned an example, one of these denatured beasts at a place called Saga and Sala of the Firth. Paint us a picture. What does that look like? It sounds incredible.
It really is striking. It's on this huge boulder, worn smooth by glaciers, and the image itself is this large bull elk. The body is long, very precisely pecked out, but it's strange. The legs are tiny, almost vestigial, The head is drawn out into this long shape like a bird's beak, as I said. There's this unnatural sharp peak at the shoulders. And the antlers there are huge, incredibly elaborate coils stretching way back over the body. It's considered one of the best executed examples of this style, sometimes called the Mongolian deer style because it links up with those famous Mongolian deer stones, which have similar radically stylized animals. And yeah, the ultimate endpoint of this transformation, as Jacobsen-Töpfer describes, is often this bizarre fusion. Wolf and elk features combined, predator and prey merging into one image.
Wow. So, okay, what's driving this? Dr. Jacobsen-Töpfer links these artistic shifts to big environmental changes, right? How did the landscape itself push the art in this direction?
Yeah, that connection seems really strong. If you look at the bigger paleo-environmental picture, during the later part of the Holocene, basically, the last several thousand years, the Eurasian steppe, this huge grassland area, was gradually getting cooler and drier.
Okay.
That climate trend meant the forests started to shrink back. They receded. And since elk depend on those forests, well, they were forced to move, generally further west and northwest following the trees.
Ah, so the elk are literally moving out of the picture for these people in the Mongolian Altai. That must have had a huge impact on their lives.
Absolutely massive. It wasn't just the animals moving. Human life had to change too. Hunters likely had to go higher into the mountains to find game. Herders needed to drive their flocks further afield to find good pasture. And you actually see hints of this in the rock art itself. There are scenes that seem to show families traveling with their herds, moving camp. And the rock art sites themselves start appearing at higher and higher elevations over time. People adapted. They became more reliant on herding, more nomadic or semi-nomadic. Moving across the landscape became central to their way of life. You also see this reflected in the increasing number and spread of cemeteries from this period.
Okay, so people are on the move. They're adapting to this changing world, becoming pastoralists. Their art is reflecting this stylization, this distance, maybe from the literal animal. What happens next? What's the next big catalyst?
The next really huge development is the horse.
Ah, the horse.
Yeah. Initially, it seems horses were mainly used as pack animals, helping people haul their tents and belongings as they moved. But then comes the really revolutionary part, riding. People start riding horses. And that just changes everything. Mobility increases dramatically. But also, think about it, the very experience of being a rider mounted high up. It creates a distance, both a literal distance from the ground and maybe a symbolic distance, too, between the person and their immediate natural surroundings.
That's a fascinating point, a whole new perspective, literally looking down on the world in a way. How did that shift show up in the art and in the symbols they used?
Well, you start seeing much more emphasis on the rider. Mounted figures become really prominent, and these figures themselves are often decorated, maybe with stylized animal patterns or emblems. This seems to signal a growing focus on identity. Personal identity, group identity, maybe status within the group. Social hierarchies might be starting to emerge or become more pronounced. And the elk image, it becomes less about depicting the actual animal out there in the forest the way the earlier hunter-gatherers saw it, and more of an emblem, a powerful symbol adopted perhaps for a clan or to signify rank or maybe certain ideas or beliefs.
So the art shifts from observation towards symbolism, status, identity. What kind of specific artistic styles developed during this period of riders and emblems?
Yeah, several distinct styles become visible. One is what's called the Arzon style. It's named after some absolutely incredible burial sites found over in the Altai Mountains. By around the 8th century BCE, this style is all over the rock art. It's known for these kind of contracted animal bodies, really emphasizing the muscles and lots of circular details. You see the same style on amazing gold plaques and ornaments found in those Arzon burials.
Okay.
Then there's imagery that seems linked to the Tagar culture. That style often shows influences from metalworking techniques, giving the art almost a three-dimensional feel even in rock carvings.
Right.
And then, of course, there's the Mongolian deer stone tradition. Sometimes it's called the sibiricus style. That's where you get those incredibly elaborate flowing antlers we talked about. It almost looks inspired by designs you might see in tattoos or woven fabrics.
These different styles with the contracted bodies, the metalwork look, the flowing antlers, it really underscores that shift away from just drawing the animal, doesn't it?
It really does. Those artistic choices, like dangling legs that don't look functional, or bodies bent in impossible ways, or animals standing in rigid, unnatural poses, they strongly suggest the artists weren't looking at a live elk anymore for inspiration. Their reference point seems to have become other art objects like carved plaques or cast metal pieces. So this denaturing of the elk, as Jacobson Tepfer calls it, it really signals a kind of weakening of that old, direct connection people had with the natural world around them, and instead concerns about social identity, status, group affiliation, those seem to be taking center stage.
It's such a dramatic change from realism. Why? Why distort the animal so radically? Does Jacobson Tepfer or other scholars offer reasons for this extreme stylization, even the fusion of elk and wolf?
It's a huge question, and it likely points to some pretty deep psychological shifts within these societies. Some researchers do connect this radical artistic change with increasing social complexity, maybe social stratification, clearer divisions between ranks or classes, possibly even emerging political tension or aggression between groups. It's quite telling, I think, that sometimes you find these highly stylized elk images packed right on top of older, more realistic Bronze Age pictures, almost like overwriting the past, making a statement of new power or identity.
Like symbolic dominance.
Yeah, potentially. And that ultimate deformation, we mentioned the elk merging into a wolf-like form, combining the features of prey and predator. You see that very powerfully in things like the stag wolf figures found guarding Sarmatian burials further west. It's a potent, maybe even unsettling symbol of transformation or power. And then eventually, the elk image just fades away in this specific region. By the Turkic period, which is roughly the 5th to 8th century CE, it essentially disappears from the rock art of the Mongolian Altai.
Completely gone.
Pretty much, yeah. And this absence seems to directly mirror the continued environmental change. The loss of forest pushed the actual elk populations further and further west. Elk images did continue to be made over in the Russian Altai, where forests remained, but they vanished from the Mongolian side that we've been focusing on.
Wow. So the art follows the animal, and when the animal goes, the art tradition, at least for the elk, goes with it. This whole journey, it feels like so much more than just looking at old drawings. It's about understanding people's entire mindset over generations, isn't it?
Exactly. That's what makes this research so compelling. The history of just this one image, the elk, it gives us this unique window into what Jacobson Tepfer calls the affective life of culture. You get a glimpse into the psychology of people who are living through and adapting to massive changes in both their natural and their social worlds. It really pushes us beyond simplistic explanations. It shows how deeply human imagination, cultural norms, and artistic expression are all interwoven with and responsive to these profound environmental and social shifts. It's a powerful reminder, really, that art is such a deep reflection of human adaptation.
Absolutely. We've traced this incredible arc today, thousands of years packed into one animal's image, watching it go from a realistic portrait of nature to this potent symbol, this emblem, reshaped by climate shifts, by migration, by the rise of horse culture, and new ideas about identity. It really drives home how tangled up human societies are with their environment and with their own evolving sense of self. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, thinking about our own world today, changing so rapidly, what symbols that we live with are currently undergoing their own transformations, maybe ones we don't even notice yet? And what might those shifts be telling future observers thousands of years from now about us, about our society, our anxieties, our adaptations? Definitely something to think about, something to mull over until our next deep dive.